All right, everybody. For our endocrine system, remember the big idea here is that we have these molecules being released into the bloodstream to allow us to have some widespread responses and to slow things down a little bit more than what we would have with the nervous system. So nervous system, if you remember, it's kind of like having a wire directly to a target. As soon as you send the electrical signal, that target will do the thing you want, but it's to one target. Endocrine, if you put that signal into the bloodstream, can then be distributed to all of the cells in the body. Or it could be specific cells that can listen to it. So for a cell to be able to understand and utilize a hormonal signal, it has to have a receptor on its surface to identify it. And so you can have that hormone go to all of the tissues and have all those tissues might have a receptor for it, or it could be specific targets. And so as you're working through some of those hormones, do keep that in mind. Like keep track of where your targets are, because sometimes it is everything and sometimes it is a specific location. Now, with these hormones, I want to kind of map out a few things. There's three ways, but two really big ways of how we can get hormones to be released in the body. They can be released in response to other hormones, so that's hormonal control. They can be released in response to changes within the blood, that's humoral control. And the third thing is that connection between endocrine and nervous system, which is going to be our neural control. I don't really necessarily want to focus on that one because that's pretty straightforward. You've already studied the nervous system. You really understand how you can send an active potential down the wire, release to a target, get the target to do something. In that case, that something is release hormone. So we want to focus more on the first two. Okay, so we're going to focus first on hormonal control. And with hormonal control, basically you have one gland bossing another gland around. Now, I like to think kind of a little bit in the scheme of going from like the pituitary gland is kind of like your mother of all glands. There's a structure above that can boss it around, and that would be the hypothalamus. It is a brain structure. It's actually both endocrine and neural. And so the hypothalamus, I like to think of as grandma. And that hypothalamus then can send signals specifically to the anterior pituitary. So if you ever see the hypothalamus sending out a hormone, this is always its target. The hypothalamus, as it releases signals to the anterior pituitary, the goal there is to get the anterior pituitary to release a specific hormone. So we're going to go through some basic ideas of how this can work in a cascading fashion. So a first example that we're going to do is going to be something called thyrotropin releasing hormone, or THR. So thyrotropin releasing hormone secretes to the anterior pituitary. This gets the anterior pituitary to secrete something called thyroid stimulating hormone. With a name like thyroid stimulating hormone, where is it going to go? Well, it targets the thyroid gland. So at the thyroid, we're going to get the thyroid gland to release thyroid hormone. And thyroid hormone is actually going to target all tissues. And the job there is to control metabolism. Now, with all of these, anytime you get down to the bottom and you've gotten what you wanted out of it, you're also going to send a negative feedback response back up to the top to then turn it off. So you have maybe a need to increase metabolism here. You have the hypothalamus releasing thyrotropin releasing hormone, going to the anterior pituitary, getting it to release thyroid stimulating hormone, goes to the thyroid, you release thyroid hormone to all the tissues. They've increased their metabolism. That increase in metabolism then shuts off that system. So that's just one example. There are a couple others, so I do want to go through each one for the hypothalamus. Okay, another one would be if we go hypothalamus and we release something called gonadotropin releasing hormone. It will talk to, and what is the rule always if we're going from the hypothalamus? It'll talk to anterior pituitary. Anterior pituitary, in this case, if it's called gonadotropin releasing hormone. Remember where you're going to basically end up at the end is gonads. So we're going to use hormones that are going to go talk to the gonads. Those hormones are going to be LH, luteinizing hormone, and FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. Names here don't make a lot of sense to you yet, but let's talk a little bit about that. So follicle stimulating hormone, meaning that it's going to go to the follicles in the ovary. So these do work in both genders, but the names make more sense for female. So the follicles are the group of cells that go around the developing egg. And they're going to help telling them, okay, we're going to get ready to ovulate. You need to develop it a little bit more and get ready for that. LH means it's time to then release that oocyte. Do something, first ovulation, do something that then forms what we call a corpus luteum. This is the structure that's left over from the follicle that then sends messages over the uterus saying, hey, I've just let an egg out. It might get fertilized. We need to be ready for that. So these are two that are going to go to gonads. So we'll go to the gonads for both of these. And again, it is in both genders. So if you're talking female here, then that would be the ovary. And with that ovary, it will start secreting estrogen and progesterone in response to these. And there's a wide range of targets for those, but I think we'll save that for more when we get into the actual system for reproductive. So estrogen and progesterone. But overall, between the two, it has to do with egg development and then maintenance of the female reproductive tract. If the gonad is for males, we're going to have that be the testes. And again, with the testes, you're going to release a hormone, this one, testosterone. For the kind of same idea, instead of egg development, it's sperm development and maintenance of the reproductive tract, but instead of female, it's male. Now, with both of these, you do also release a hormone called inhibin that will come back up here and serve as that signal back saying, yep, we've done the things that you asked us to do. We made the gamete, that's sperm or egg. And so we do have a negative feedback loop using hormone inhibin. Okay. So that's another example of some hormonal control and a cascade negative feedback loop. Another one would be, again, we're going hypothalamus. Okay, so with this one, we're going to use corticotropic releasing hormone. Again, target is always going to be anterior pituitary. In this case, we're going corticotropic releasing hormone. We're actually going to release a corticotropic hormone. To do that, that comes from the adrenal cortex. We got to stimulate the adrenal cortex. And so that will be adrenocorticotropic hormone. So adrenocorticotropic hormone talks to the adrenal cortex, gets the adrenal cortex to release cortisol. And then that goes to all tissues, or actually really more storage tissues. And the job of this one is more for nutrient release. You hear about this one a little bit more like in fight or flight. You hear about it as a stress hormone because you're in a stress situation, you're activating your fight or flight. And so we want to have extra energy to defend ourselves or run away. And so we'll release nutrients from storage to provide that energy to do that. Okay, so two more kind of in this family. So we have the hypothalamus again. That's going to signal to the anterior pituitary, just like always, to get it to release growth hormone. So the signal, the initial signal from the hypothalamus has to be related to that term growth hormone. So this is going to be growth hormone releasing hormone. Has anybody caught the pattern yet? They all are releasing hormones. Corticotropic releasing hormone, thyrotropin releasing hormone, gonadotropin releasing hormone, growth hormone releasing hormone. Their jobs are to go to the anterior pituitary to get them to release something. Now in the case of GH, this is another one that goes to all tissues. And then the basic idea is growth. And so you want that to happen widespread throughout the body, not just one area growing faster than another. So that's why we're going to all tissues as your target. Okay, so those are the four that I would expect you to understand from all of those releasing hormones from the hypothalamus. There is a fifth one talked about in your book where it talks about prolactin releasing hormone, but they really can't find that. So research is kind of showing right now that that hormone doesn't actually exist. So I'm not going to have you learn something that we haven't really nailed down or confirmed its existence. So for now, we're just focusing on these 4. All right, thanks for watching.